Chapter 3, Quirk Assessment Test. After arriving home from being dropped off by the police, Izuku headed straight to his room and started building a profile of the blonde girl he'd met earlier. He started looking up news reports that might mention the girl or incidents that matched the scene he witnessed tonight. His search turned out to be fruitless, seeing as though nothing came close to what he was looking for. Over the next 6 weeks after school and training, Izuku would head out during the night in hopes of tracking down the girl with the vampiric tendencies. During his travels, he did happen to overhear a couple of paramedics talking while on their lunch break. The two were standing at a food truck waiting for their orders as Izuku was walking past. He listened closely when one of them mentioned that a blood bank had been broken into a couple weeks ago. Once he heard that detail, he decided to stick around for more information, but the paramedics received a call on the radio and had to leave in a hurry. Figuring that this might not be a coincidence, Izuku made a mental note to check out other local blood banks for future surveillance. After looking at his watch and realizing how late it was, he made a dash back to his house so he could get ready for his first day at UA tomorrow. It would be an understatement to say that Izuku was excited to be starting his first day in the hero program. He ran into the living room to give his mom a kiss before jetting out of the door. He didn't see that his mom was trying to get his attention before leaving, but she just decided to text him good luck and be careful. The train ride took about 45 minutes but still left plenty of time for the green-haired boy to arrive early at the UA campus. As he walked through the entrance of the prestigious academy, he couldn't help but marvel in all the sights it had to offer. Following the signs down the hall that pointed him in the direction for first-year students, he found a corridor that led him to Class 1A. When he found the classroom's door, he recognized the sound of a loud and familiar blonde explosive user coming from the other side of it. Izuku almost instantly facepalmed in the realization that he would be stuck in another classroom with Katsuki Bakugo. Knowing what that meant, he prepared for whatever may come. As he opened the door, he saw 3 students already seated at their desk and one blue-haired boy waving his arms dramatically while still standing. Noticing his same glasses and facial structure trying to scold Bakugo, Izuku recognized him as the boy who helped him save that girl during the entrance exam. To their left was a fair-skinned girl with long flowing jet black hair and astonishing facial features to match. She was reading a book and trying to ignore the ruckus going on to her right. Beside her was a boy sitting stoically gazing out the corner of his eyes. Izuku noticed that he had a head of half red and white hair, thinking to himself that it could possibly have something to do with his quirk, or maybe it could just be genetic. His concentration was broken when he heard someone yell out, "Deku, why the hell are you here?" The raven-haired girl lifted her head up at the mention of the name Deku and started looking in the direction of the green-haired boy. She started thinking to herself, could that really be him? Before making any assumptions, she decided to observe for now before confronting the boy. Izuku scoffed at the voice of his former bully and decided to take his seat. As he approached the empty desk, Bakugo shot up from his chair into his direction with his hands popping with mini explosions. Izuku, seeing what the blonde boy was trying to do, simply leapt into the air while placing one hand on the charging boy's shoulder and somersaulted over his attacker. Bakugo sprang forward and almost crashed into a desk while Izuku nonchalantly took the nearest seat. Everyone in the class looked at the green-haired boy, impressed with his acrobatic display except for Bakugo. The blue-haired boy then walked over to him and spoke. "Hello again, I see that you're still full of surprises. We didn't get to officially meet last time, but I am Tenai Ida. I'm glad that we will be sharing a classroom this year." Izuku just smiled before extending his hand out to shake Ida's before saying, "Oh yeah, sorry about that. I was thinking about something after the test, and it totally slipped my mind. I'm Izuku Midoriya, by the way, and it's nice to officially meet you as well." The two shook hands and then decided to take their seats. Moments later, other students started entering the classroom one by one until one familiar round-faced girl locked eyes with the green-haired boy. Izuku instantly recognizing her, he already knew where this was going. "I tease you, you're the boy that helped save me." This statement caught the attention of a few of the other students, which made them stop what they were doing to listen. The girl then ran up to Izuku and started bowing in gratitude while thanking him. Izuku then said, "You're very welcome, but it's nothing that anyone else wouldn't have done." He then flashed a bright smile before he heard a deep voice come out of nowhere. "If you just came here to socialize, then you're in the wrong classroom." Everyone looked in the direction of the door to a tall lanky man in dark clothes with a scarf wrapped around his neck standing there. All the kids of Class 1A fell silent to the man's words before he spoke again. "At least you didn't take long to settle down. Now everyone take your seat." The remaining students who were still standing quickly found their seats before the teacher went on to introduce himself. "Good morning, my name is Shota Izawa and I'll be your homeroom teacher this year." Izuku couldn't help but notice the goggles around his collar and familiar demeanor. A light bulb went off in his head as he figured out who his teacher actually was. Keeping that to himself for now, he joined the rest of his class as they listened to the teacher going over his lessons for the year. In the midst of all the abridged details to what his school year was going to involve, Izuku took some time to familiarize himself with some of his new classmates. Noticing that some had mutation quirks, he tried guessing what their abilities could be. He was suddenly brought out of his thoughts by Mr. Izawa saying, "Everyone grab one of these PE uniforms and meet me out on the practice field for your quirk assessment test." Some of the students grew worried by that because they were under the impression that they'll be attending orientation on their first day, but Izawa quickly assured them that he'll be leading the class his own way. After getting changed, all of the kids met on the practice field and waited for their instructions from their teacher. Izawa then passed what looked like a baseball to Izuku. Izuku caught the ball, then stared at it before Izawa spoke. "Midoriya, you scored the highest at the entrance exam, so you're up first. What was your longest throw in middle school?" Izuku thought about his answer before responding. "The last time I checked it was about 75 meters. Izawa then replied to his answer with, "Alright, let's see how far you can throw it while using your quirk." Izuku then stepped up to the pitching box awaiting the go-ahead from the pro. Once he gave him the signal, Izuku charged up one for all to 25%. The power coursed throughout his body and green lightning started to form around him. He took a proper throwing stance before reaching his arm back. As his arm accelerated forward, his power arched and he yelled, "Smash!" There was a tremendous source of wind pressure created as the ball attempted to break the sound barrier. It took off to the sky like a rocket, taking the calm expression of Izuku's classmates with it, especially Bakugo. The blonde, being lost for words, inwardly said, "What the hell was that? When did he get a quirk? Was he lying to me this whole time?" The brunette girl who Izuku had saved was the first to speak aloud among the students. "I told you he was strong." Ida just sat back and agreed with his friend's statement. The raven-haired girl looked with squinted eyes and focused hard on the boy's features as if she was trying to figure something out. A few seconds later, Izawa's handheld device had finally beeped, indicating that the ball had stopped moving. The teacher then flipped the screen around so everyone in the Class 1A could see. It read 903 meters. Someone in the back of the crowd whistled before saying, "That's some arm, man, that looks like fun. I can't wait for my turn." After hearing that, Izawa would go on to warn the class that whoever comes in last place during this test will be kicked out of the hero program. Almost everyone gasped at that news and grew worried of the pending results. It was clear that Izuku wasn't going anywhere due to him only coming in second place for 2 events. The side-to-side jump, who was won by Mineta, a short boy with purple balls on his head, and the ball throw record was broken by Urarika when the ball entered outer space, resulting in an infinity as the score. All the students felt drained after pushing themselves to the limits, trying their best not to be kicked out. The tiredness easily disappeared and was replaced by anger when their teacher informed them that no one was being kicked out. He then went on to say that it was a ploy to get the class to try their hardest in order to see what they could do so far. Not knowing what to think of his tactics, the whole class mumbled to themselves simultaneously, "Geez, what a jerk." Once the sigh stopped and the commotion came to a cease after Izawa activated his quirk, he told them to go get changed back into their uniforms before heading back to the classroom. Once the final bell rang for the day, Aizawa dismissed the class, and before Izuku grabbed his bag to head for the door, a red-haired boy walked over to his desk to introduce himself. "Hey man, I'm Ijiro Kirishima and your ball throw was super manly. What do you do for your workouts?" Before Izuku could respond, Kirishima was cut off by his pink-skinned classmate. "What's up Midoriya, I'm Mina Shido and you're like totally ripped. Mind sharing some tricks to getting strong like you?" With a great big smile to match her bubbly personality, she just gazed at the boy. Izuku smiled back and said, "It's nothing out of the normal, we could definitely get together in the future to train sometime if you would like." A ribbit of excitement came from Tsuiuasu as she looked forward to getting to know her fellow green-haired classmate. Bakugo, still not sure of what to think about Izuku's feats during today's class, just scowled at him out of his peripheral vision. Not too long after that, the students all started to disperse, making their way home. Izuku walked at a slow pace as he mentally organized all the faces with the names of his new fellow classmates. As he exited the building, he saw another one of his peers chasing down her hat that was being carried by the wind. He activated his quirk and quickly dashed over to grab the hat before it could get any further away. The girl caught up to where the boy was and stopped right in front of him before speaking. "Thank you so much, I didn't think I was ever going to catch it." Izuku smiled, then handed her back her hat and spoke. "It's no problem at all, I'm glad I was nearby." The blue-haired girl waved and ran off in the other direction. Izuku just shrugged his shoulder before walking away. Just before he made it through the gates at the entrance, he heard a voice say, "I see you're still saving people every chance you get." The green-haired boy turned to see where the voice came from. When he saw who it was, he locked eyes with his raven-haired classmate who he hadn't got a chance to officially meet yet. She walked up to Izuku with a smirk on her face before continuing her words. "I wasn't sure if it was you at first, but once I had heard Bakugo call you Deku back in class, my suspicions got stronger, but what really tipped me off was when I saw this." Izuku looked to see where she was pointing at and noticed her finger directly on the badge he kept on his collar at all times. A light bulb went off in his head and he thought back to where he got it from. The girl staring at his facial expression saw him finally put it all together. Izuku then looked back at the girl directly into her onyx eyes, and her image was replaced with the one of the young girl he saved all those years ago. His face lit up with a big grin before he said, "It's really you? You're the girl from the alley." The girl just smiled and replied, "Yeah, it's me. I honestly didn't know if you'd remember me. After you ran away that day, it dawned on me that I never told you my name. I'm Momoyeo Iorozu, and thanks for saving me." "What was it?" "Ah yes, Izuku Midoriya." She grinned at that last part but was then embraced with a hug. The hug lasted for just a few seconds, and he released her before he started to talk. "I'm sorry about how I left you back then, but I'm glad to see that you're okay. I tried looking you up afterwards, but I couldn't find anything about your identity in the news story." Momo just smiled then said, "No worries, but I was curious about why you told me that your name was Deku." Izuku scratched the back of his head sheepishly before replying, "Well, you see, I didn't want the incident getting back to my mother, and also it would have hindered my chances of getting into the hero program. Again, I'm sorry if my actions might have seemed insincere." Izuku bowed, hoping that Momo would accept his apology. She donned a menacing expression on her face, but then it quickly changed to a smirk. She then said in response to that, "I figured it out once I realized who you were today, so no biggie." She winked at him before walking off. As she walked away, Izuku kept his eyes focused on her as she headed in the direction of a stretch limousine parked in front of the school. The driver opened the door for the girl, but before she got in, she said one last thing to the boy. "I'll see you tomorrow, Deku." After that, she got into the limo before it pulled off. Izuku, still shocked that he finally reunited with the girl he saved years ago, didn't know what else to say, so he just waved in reply. The limo drove off, leaving the boy there to ponder over the exchange. Momo thought to herself as she headed home, "Who would have guessed in my search for him that we'd both end up in the same school, and at the same time, I'll finally have a chance to tell him everything." Momo sat in silence as her driver took her back to her family estate. Izuku, thinking about today's events as he made his way home, remembered that he has a stakeout to get to when he was done with all of his homework and training. He quickly made a dash towards the train station in order to ensure that he'll get home on time. Once everything was done and his mother fell asleep, Izuku made his way to the address he researched earlier that day. When he arrived to his destination, he found a perch on a one-story building's roof across the street from his target. He hid behind an AC duct to stay out of sight while watching over the building. After a few hours, he figured out just how boring stakeouts could be. He sucked it up and looked at it as practice for the future for when he becomes a pro. The next morning it would take a little bit more of a push to get out of bed, seeing as though he didn't get as much sleep as he would like. After a cold shower and a quick bite to eat, Izuku would head off to school so he wouldn't run the chance of being late. Once all of the normal classes were done for the day, it was time for the heroics portion of the curriculum, which is supposed to be led by someone other than Aizawa-sensei today. Not knowing who was teaching this lesson, the entire class speculated who it could possibly be. The next thing you know, the classroom door swung open, followed by All Might dashing into the room. "Here I am," entering the room as a normal person. The rest of the class shouted All Might except for Shoto, Bakugo and Izuku. Izuku, being used to All Might's entrances at this point, just smirked at his teacher. All Might then started filling the kids in on what they were going to be doing. "Today we're going to be doing mock battles where teams of 2 will go head to head against each other." All of the students' eyes lit up in excitement when they heard that. They almost vibrated out of their seats at the chance to finally do something related to hero work. All Might then made his announcement once they settled down. "You all are going to meet me on ground beta, but before you do that, you gotta dress the part." All Might then pushed a button on the wall, causing 20 cases which contained their hero costumes to emerge. The kids did as they were instructed and went to get changed into their costumes before meeting All Might at the testing grounds. Everyone's costumes are exactly the same except for Deku's. The color is more of a forest green with black patches and gloves. Instead of red tennis shoes, he has black reinforced boots made to look like the red, black and white patent leather Jordans. Heat-resistant polymers with a Kevlar weave are lined inside the suit to help with any stress and added friction when he's moving at high speeds. All Might, staring with pride at his class, fawned over the future heroes in their costumes as they strut out to the practice field. Once everyone arrived, he started going over how things were going to play out. The teams were going to be paired up by letters, and whichever 2 letters were selected from the box would face off against one another. Just like in canon, Izuku was paired with Uraraka and Bakugo was paired with Ida. Their letters were picked to be in the first match. Izuku couldn't help but look over in the direction of his opponent. That's when he noticed the glare Bakugo was giving him. Bakugo then made a hand movement, pointing his thumb to one side of his neck, then sliding it over to the other side, insinuating that he was going to end Izuku's life. This didn't surprise the green-haired boy at all because he figured it would happen sooner or later. He then headed over to Achako to come up with a strategy for their match. While they were discussing, Ida made his way to Bakugo to plan as well. Once he tapped the blonde on his shoulder, Bakugo just shouted, "Follow me, you damn extra, we got a nerd to kill." Tenai, not comfortable with what was just said, he sighed and followed his foul-mouthed classmate into the building. Once the prep time was up for both teams to strategize, the hero team comprised of Izuku and Achako entered the building. After they made their way throughout the main hall, Achako spotted the back staircase that Izuku mentioned in their plan. She gave him an assuring nod, then took off towards the stairs as discussed. Izuku, seeing her sprint off, did his part by becoming a distraction for the walking stick of dynamite that will be heading his way soon. Izuku slowed down once he got to a corridor when things suddenly got too quiet. He felt a tingle in the back of his neck, giving him a sensation of danger being nearby. The next thing Izuku knew, he was darting out of the way of an incoming blast from his former friend, who just happened to be the villain he must stop to pass this test. Quickly rolling to the side and jumping back to get some distance, Izuku stood up to face his opponent. Bakugo then started to monologue as he approached the green-haired boy. "I don't know where this miraculous quirk came from, or maybe you had it this whole time, but you never used it. All I know is that now there's no running away this time, you damn nerd. There is no teachers here to stop me, so you can't just run or ignore what's about to happen to you. Just then Bakugo shot forward, preparing his famous right hook, when all of a sudden Deku had disappeared from his eyesight. He blinked, then saw that the green-haired boy had appeared right in front of him in a flash. Bakugo then felt Deku's fist impact his gut as he heard the boy say, "Detroit Smash." Deku, with 15% of 1 for all activated, landed a clean hit square in Bakugo's exposed solar plexus, sending him flying in the opposite direction. The explosion user landed on the ground coughing and wheezing, trying to catch his breath when he heard his foe speak. "Not that I owe you an explanation, but yes, I've always had a quirk. It was dangerous for me to use it as a kid because of its physical backlash, so I trained my body until I was strong enough to finally use it." Starting to stand, Bakugo looked directly at the boy as he spoke. "So, you're right, Bakugo, there is no more running. A hero is never supposed to let a villain get in their way or stop them from saving the day. You may not actually be a villain, but I'll be the one to stop you. You've wanted your rematch for so long, now here's your chance." Izuku then took a fighting stance while waving his opponent to bring it on. Hearing the words of his former friend infuriated the blonde, sending him into a rage after the boy. Izuku, knowing this would happen, took off at lightning speed, giving Bakugo a target to follow. Meanwhile, upstairs, Ida is listening to what sounds like a battle on the other end of his communicator attached to Bakugo. Remembering that he's also supposed to be guarding the fake bomb, started scanning the room for intruders. Achako, following the plan laid out by her partner, made her way upstairs to the room next door to where Ida is hiding out. Bouncing from wall to wall and making his way towards the stairs, Deku led Bakugo on a chase which led them to the top floor where everyone else conveniently was. Once Izuku made it to his intended floor, he stopped to see exactly where his pursuer was, but the blonde was nowhere in sight. He started walking slowly with his guard on high alert when the wall beside him exploded out of nowhere. The surprise blast stunned him, which allowed Bakugo to put him into a chokehold. The blonde started to speak. "You think just because you learned a couple of fancy moves that you're gonna beat me? How dare you look down on me like you're not the same worthless Deku you've always been." Bakugo then took his free hand and slammed it into Izuku's gut, causing the boy to lean over in pain. Bakugo then bellowed in excitement, "I told you, you damn nerd. You'll never." Bakugo's words were cut short when Izuku got from under the blonde while still holding onto his wrist. With one motion he twisted the blonde boy's arm, restraining his movements before landing a powerful blow to his ribs. This hit caused Bakugo a lot of pain but didn't knock him out. Once he recovered, he turned around to swing but didn't see his target anywhere. This made him remember where they were both headed, and he blasted off back to his base. Izuku made it to the room where Ida was located just seconds before Bakugo came rocketing down the hall. Izuku's eyes slightly widened when he saw Bakugo's fingers on the pin of his gauntlet, ready to release one of his largest attacks. Seeing this, Izuku told Achako to brace herself for the incoming blast. Bakugo, with a hint of satisfaction, yelled out, "Die!" After pulling the pin, a large explosion that consumed the entire hallway went off. This truly concerned All Might and the other students in the monitor room. Not wanting to interfere on what could be a learning experience for his students, All Might held off on stopping the match right then and there. Back in the building, smoke and debris were scattered throughout the hall, leaving all the surrounding rooms exposed. Izuku, who was able to jump behind a load-bearing pillar, narrowly avoiding the full brunt of the blast. Seeing this as his opportunity, he took off running with Bakugo not too far behind him. Izuku made his way into the room where Ida was, only to find him standing in front of 4 identical piles of rubble which were hiding their target. Surprising Ida with his quick entrance, he ran for the pile of rubble nearest to him in hopes of distracting Ida while Eureka got in place. When Izuku got closer to his target, he felt that tingling sensation he had earlier, which made him dodge an incoming explosion directed towards his back. Izuku then leaped to the side, landing on his hands, then he flipped forward over Ida's incoming low sweep kick. The villain duo both stopped and turned to face their foe before charging in his direction. Izuku then proceeded to run straight at the two with his fist aimed in an attack position. Ida yelled out, "Recipro burst!" At the same time, Bakugo yelled along with his partner, "You're mine, Deku." Seeing that there was no way he could escape their combined attack, Ida and Bakugo both smiled in victory. What happened next caught them both off guard. Izuku then yelled out, "Eureka now!" The villain team, being distracted by all of Izuku's attempts to touch the bomb, made them totally forget about his partner. Izuku then went from using 15% of one for all to 30% in an instance, doubling his speed. This increase in speed got him next to Bakugo's left hand that was preparing a large explosion. Izuku kicked that hand into the path of where Ida was landing his attack before jumping out the way of the collision. Ida, who was preparing a right roundhouse kick, ended up landing his attack on Bakugo, who ended up hitting Ida with the blast meant for Izuku. This action caused both boys to go flying in the opposite direction, nearly knocking each other out. Once Bakugo recovered from the accidental attack, he saw Deku just standing there with a smirk on his face and his arms crossed. Seeing this, of course, angered the blonde boy, causing him to fly off the handle yet again. Bakugo started charging in the green-haired boy's direction when he heard Izuku say, "Aren't you forgetting something?" The next thing you know, All Might's voice came over the loudspeaker saying, "The hero team wins." Bakugo stopped midway before getting to Izuku when he noticed that the green-haired boy was pointing to his left. Bakugo then saw Eureka with one hand on the fake bomb while giving her partner a thumbs up with the other. The blonde's face got pale and he erupted in anger, yelling, "Damn it." Izuku couldn't help but smile at the scene in front of him before telling his former friend, "I knew you would come after me, that's why I sent Eureka ahead to hide and wait for the perfect opportunity to grab the bomb." Bakugo then started to pay attention to what the green-haired boy was telling him. "Getting you riled up would put the focus on me, which kept you distracted, although I didn't expect the bomb to be hidden in a clever disguise like that. I knew making you both chase me would distract you long enough for her to find it though." That statement pissed Bakugo off even more because he realized everything the boy was saying was true. He set up that diversion and I fell right into his trap. Ida finally coming to his senses caused the pair to break from their glares at one another and get back to the assignment. Everyone in the monitor room were filled with excitement and worry for their fellow classmates after what they just saw take place. Eureka ran to Ida's side and made sure he was okay after taking that hit from Bakugo's explosion. Izuku joined her shortly after while Bakugo just walked off back towards the monitor room. A few minutes later, some medical robots arrived and carted off Ida to Recovery Girl. The hero team headed back to the monitor room for a quick debrief of their test results. Once the two made it back to the room, they were swarmed by the classmates who immediately praised and questioned the duo before All Might cut them off. Now, young heroes in training, calm down so we could discuss what happened." The students got quiet before All Might asked, "Now who would you say is the MVP of this match?" Yayoi Orozu was the first to raise her hand. All Might nodded, giving her the go-ahead. She then gave her answer. Midoriya would be the obvious choice in this round. He flawlessly used his opponent's weakness against him and accomplished his goal of providing an opportunity for his partner to secure their victory. If it wasn't for his warning, she might have been caught up in Bakugo's careless blast that could have brought the whole building down and even set off the bomb in the process. She waited to hear All Might's thoughts on her answer before Izuku interrupted. "Actually, I think Eureka deserves it." Everyone in the room gasped before he went on. "I should have captured Bakugo before entering the room in order to prevent his explosions from possibly setting off the bomb. We all played a role in this test, but Eureka's actions never put the bomb in danger of exploding. Next time I'll make sure to do a better job in assessing the situation." The pro just sweat dropped as he couldn't come up with a better response than what his students came up with. All Might then spoke. "You're both right. Although everything went according to young Midoriya's plan, it isn't always going to work out that way. Remember that in the future, and there will always be unforeseen variables that could hinder any well-laid plan." The class was captivated by the hero's words and started clapping at the wisdom they just received. Kirishima then turned to Bakugo, who was currently sulking in the corner. "Hey man, are you okay? You'll win it next time for sure." The redhead just flashed a grin before Bakugo responded with an angry scowl while saying, "Shut up, stupid hair." Bakugo then walked off and Kirishima thought to himself, "But our hair is so similar." Kirishima then shrugged his shoulder before bringing his attention back to the monitor screen. While all this was happening, a certain heterochromatic teen had his eyes on the green-haired victor of this first match. He then thought to himself, "I don't think anyone else noticed his change in speed back there during the match. It was like he was holding back on purpose." The dual hair-colored boy then made a mental note to keep his eye on his green-haired classmate, seeing as though it looks like he'll have more than just a loudmouth blonde to contend with for the number 1 slot in the class. End of chapter 3. Thanks for watching my video, and if you like what you heard, please subscribe. Don't forget to let me know what you think in the comment section below. I'll holla at y'all later.